Italian English. You understand Italian English? Yeah. The English is quite easy. I hope there is no real English one. Be more relaxed. Okay, thank you to having invited me. I tried to follow the previous conversations, and I have not understood all, but I have understood the very general spirit. And at least for the presentation that has been done until now, they are quite similar to the one that we means the group that I'm part of are doing in Italy and in other parts of the world. And so I have rechanged my presentation, trying to be more focalized on the issue of social innovation and what design can do. And so I will share with you some of the idea on which we are working in this period, trying to see the state of the art of the conversation. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So just to recall, there is a very simple definition of what is social innovation that it's given by the Young Foundation, that is one of the major centers that is working on this subject. And if you are interested in social innovation, I advise you to search for some UK organization, this Young Foundation, the Sixth Association, the Nesta. They are the group that are working more hard and maybe in a very precise way today on this topic worldwide. They are not specifically interested in design for social innovation. They are in general on the issue about social innovation. So you can find a lot of discussion and also try to better understand why social innovation is so important today. But the definition could be quite simple. So social innovation are ideas that work to solve some social problem. And it's very important they do it in a way that has a social value also the process. And for what I understood, also all the cases that we have seen today are interesting both because they get something and they do it in such a way that they create social fabric, they build up social capital while they are doing it. So this is a very important issue. Social innovation is important for the result, it's important for the process. And it's about social change. So the issue about social innovation is not new anymore. We could say that social innovation always existed because it's related to the human capability to face a problem and find a solution. So there is nothing specifically new. If we are talking about social innovation today more than in the past, it's simply because after 1 century in which when we talk about innovation, here I think that we are all designers more or less, so we know what is innovation. Until now, if we said innovation without adjective, what you think? So the technological innovation, it was obvious that innovation means a change in technology that creates some change in the society, but the driver was the technological one. And there was some motivation because it's for sure true that in the last century, the major transformation that we have had are being driven by technology. Nevertheless, something happened that bring at the beginning not so many people and progressing more and more to understand that the notion of innovation is much more general. It's not only the innovation that starts in a scientific research, move to a technological laboratory, and maybe arrive to the society and change the society. That is from technology to society. But there could be also some invention that happen directly in the society and that consolidates and change something in the society and maybe ask for the new technology to support this social invention. So the beginning of the transformation could be in the technology and will be in the technology also in the future. It's not said that the technological innovation is obsolete, it's still there. But there are some moments in which also society itself the people itself, a little bit as we've seen now with your beautiful presentation, but at a larger scale, can invent something that in turn transform in a larger way the society, and maybe also can ask for some new product and technology to support this social transformation. So the beginning of recognizing all this importance of this social-driven innovation is not now anymore new, even if we can say, and we already discussed it yesterday with some between you, that when, for instance, if I take my very modest personal biography, when we started to talk about social innovation and design for social innovation, it was really something very marginal. So the discussion was really done by very few people in a very marginal places. Now, for some reason, the whole topic of social innovation is moving from the fringe to the center. And this has some implication, both for what is the meaning of social innovation today and for what could be the meaning of design for social innovation. That is, of course, in this audience, what is more important for us. So let's try to see some characterizing element of where are we now. So for sure, where are we now is that in this moment in the world, everywhere in the world, there are hundreds of thousands, probably millions in relation to billions, right? So millions is a lot, it's not the majority. But it's not a tiny minority. There are millions of people that facing some social issue invent or enhance way of doing that are out from the mainstream. So for instance, here we are in China, and if you think to China today, of course you think something similar to what you think now if you think to Brazil, that there is a lot of people moving from the countryside to this town, that there are a lot of people moving from traditional way of cultivating, agricultural way of doing, toward the industrial one, and consumption mainly done buying in the big commercial centers. So this is the mainstream that we imagine. Nevertheless, in China, as everywhere in the world, you can find a situation like this one, that is a case of community-supported agriculture, that I'm sure that exists also in Brazil. That means that there is a kind of relationship in between a community of people in the countryside and a community of people in the city, and they generate a new kind of twinning, a new relationship in between them. So the citizen helps the country, the farmer to survive, not only to survive, but also to reinforce the community and to exist. So this notion of the community-supported agriculture is one of those ideas that who knows who invented it. It seems that it has been invented in America, but it's not sure, in North America, but it's not sure. For sure, a good side of globalization is that this very intelligent and brilliant way to put together directly producer and consumer, and in a very advanced economical model in which in some way the citizen plays the role of the bank for the farmers, spread in the world. And if there are hundreds of cases in America, in North America, and in Europe that I know better, we found something similar also in China, for instance. This is the last. We can synthesize that the good ideas can emerge in different places, and afterward they spread in the world. The second issue is that when you imagine not only the present situation, but the dynamic of change of all this new form of organization, we have to consider that no one of them today could exist at least without a telephone. And the telephone today is, as everybody knows, the relatively advanced telephones are computers more powerful than the one that was needed to send a man in the space. So everybody has today, not everybody, but a growing number of people has in the pocket something that has the same power that has been needed 40 years ago, 50 years ago, it was to send the first man on the moon or in the space. And all these people with this tool in their hand and with a new possibility in terms of connectivity can not only invent something new that could be invented also 1 century ago, but can invent something new that has never been seen before and that could not not be possible before. Please understand me. I am not an addict to technology. Presently, I am old, so I also the digital device. But I try to understand what are the potentialities. And in this case, it is not the technology per se. It's, you know, there is a fantastic claim that I like a lot that says the technology is not per se negative, is not per se positive, it's not neutral. It's a paradox, so it's not negative, not positive, it's not neutral. It is a new platform. It gives possibility to do something different. So it's not that it's not neutral to have a telephone in the hand. And it's not said that it's good, it's not said that it's bad, but simply when people have a telephone in their hand, the telephone is not only a thing to chat, it's an organizer. Society, the organization are conversation at the end of the story. And so a telephone permits to make conversation that were not possible before. And so we have the possibility to organize something that was not possible to organize. And for instance, I don't know here in Brazil, but I know enough because it's written a lot of literature, the extension of the telephone in Africa, the mobile phone in Africa, and the invention that has been done by the African in using the telephone. Maybe you know that there have been a lot of new ideas that emerged from the African villages. It's an extension of the Ubuntu. It's an extension of the idea of the African of being in contact. So it's a way to maintain the spirit of the village even when they move from the villages to the city. So it's a story that could be studied, that should be studied a lot. What's important for us to see and to say is that if we think to the future of social innovation, we have not only to look to the past, what happened in the previous decades, that used a certain level of connecting technologies, but we have to look or try to imagine what can happen when you have billions of people with the iPad or similar to an iPad in the hand. And as a matter of fact, if you go to the network, you navigate a little bit, you find now hundreds of sites, as for instance as this one, that are sites in which people that do not know each other are helped to do something in the real life. So the big change that is happening in the technology is that 20 years ago, until 10 years ago, the main metaphor for this technology was the virtual reality. And the apex of this idea was when they introduced a Second Life. Maybe you remember it. And Second Life was something in which the technology took you to live your life as an avatar in a kind of other digital space. But emblematically, Second Life has been it did not work well. So it's finished, more or less, because the people at the end found the Second Life very boring. And the new metaphor, that is not new, but it became the dominant one, is not anymore the metaphor of the Second Life, the digital space, but it's the metaphor of the augmented reality. And the metaphor of the augmented reality is the metaphor that says, I live in a double hybrid space in which the technology permits me to live in the physical space with my physical body, having my physical relationships, but augmented thanks to the potentiality of the technology. And all the platforms like this that move from the most simple flash mobs, no? You know, the flash mob is a synthesis of that. You have people that do not know each other. Through the virtual space, they have a common goal. And in the case of the flash mob, they met only maybe for 3 hours to dance in the street, or to make a strike, or to do something like this. But the metaphor of the flash mob can be extended. It's what permits to have a fluid society in which people are relatively individualized and they do not know each other, and to create an organization that permits to give an agenda to them in terms of time and space to do something together. So when we think to the future of what is possible in terms of social innovation, we have to think that in any case, even in the poorest place, because the telephone is the most diffused technology that we have everywhere, the potentiality are not the one of the past, are the one of the future that emerge from here. And it has also to be said that, especially in some countries, but I think more or less everywhere, Brazil, I think, is very peculiar, and I will be interested to understand from you what you think. But for sure in Europe, for instance, that I know, of course, well, and but I know enough well also China, just to give to a very diverse extreme. The politics, the policymakers are starting to look to social innovation with a big interest. Why they are looking with a big interest? Because maybe not in this moment in Brazil, but in many other places in the world, there is a perception of a kind of socio-economic crisis. And the social dimension of the crisis is particularly strong in Europe for several reasons, elderly people, integration of new immigrants, and so on and so forth. And in China, because the Chinese society is more or less exploding. So they have a big problem how to keep together a society that changes fast. So the issue about social innovation seems to be a possible integration to the limits that all the strategies, all the social strategy, both the Chinese one or the European one that are quite different, of course, have had until now. And if we are in Europe, for instance, it has been declared that social innovation is equally important than the technological innovation, and something started to change. So this is the website of the Social Innovation Europe. That is a very official website of the European Commission, and I can be witness of the fact that as a group of researchers, and I one, that we have always had a lot of difficulties to find some money of research until a few years ago, because there was no research that was asking for social innovation. Now there are too many. So there are many of the call. In Europe, mainly we do research through the European community. Many of the call in the European community are, in a way or the other, related to social innovation. So also this one, social innovation has a lot to do with the whole story of alternative movement. Personally, I am a representation. I mean, a likely representation of somebody that comes from alternative. But the future is alternative in a different way. It's alternative but not necessarily minority. It's the politics of a new kind of politics that is a politics of the everyday life. And this is not only for very marginal group, very radical in the traditional way. It's a way to be radically different in the same way that the group that do food co-op or community-supported agriculture is radically different from what the establishment think, even if they are not expressing themselves as a normal party. And so in some way, all this story entering the politics, in some way changing the views of the same politics. But whatever it is not an issue about minorities. It's an issue that enters from the bottom, but in some way is changing the overall picture. How is my English? Works? And also, now it's I come from the old Europe, where the future appeared to everybody very dark. And I come here between happy people that have the idea that the future is very open, and I don't want to reduce this moment of happiness of being in such a good economical condition. But you have to know that we are a globalized society, globalized planet, and there are some other countries. There was once upon a day where they developed one that are very strongly hit by economical crisis. And it's very interesting to see what happened, for instance, in Greece, in Spain, in Portugal, probably also in Italy, because in some way all the movement that I've talked until now by wishes. So people like it to do it. Now the wish are converging with the need. There are growing number of people in Greece, has been studied more than ever, that are doing something not only because they wish, but also because it is the only way to survive. So there are millions of people that have been accustomed to a certain kind of outstanding consumption that now have to change towards something else. And it's interesting that they find the seeds of the new idea that has been generated in the previous phase that could be used. So for instance, this is emblematic. The food co-op and the community support agriculture were relatively a lot of people, but not so many, and done mainly by the wish, if you want. In terms of marketing, would be a kind of radical, well-off population. They choose to adopt the food crop or the community support agriculture or the co-housing, etc. So mainly driven by the wish, I like to do it. Now there is a convergence with a larger number of people that choose the same direction because they need it. And this is the one that has been more studied is the potato movement in Greece. That it's a kind of food co-op but extended to larger number of people. And a very important person is Manuel Castle, that maybe somebody of you knows, because he's a very famous sociologist, and made some study in Spain about the diffusion in his work of the non-market economies in the area of Barcelona, and they find out that the 70% of the population had at least one activity out from the market. Out from the market means exchange, means to participate in co-op, means something that is related to having some advantage outside the normal market. So also this has to be taken account when we think to the future, that there will be a larger number of people that will in some way put together the wish and the needs. Finally, not so finally, the idea of catastrophes that we had until some decades ago was, well, maybe in the future, if we don't do something today, there will be some catastrophe. So the idea of sustainability, the idea of need to change, was linked to be so wise that imagine that I have to change today because otherwise in the future we will have a catastrophe. Now this future is today, because the catastrophes, luckily not the big one, but many catastrophes are here. And what the catastrophe shows is the fragility of our systems. So the idea that the world that we have known until now could not last in time is not only because socially we don't like it so much, or because there are the poor and the rich, not only because economically in some region of the world at least it's really difficult to imagine how to recover, but also because a number of small but not so small catastrophes are hitting and showing that if you have New York is the biggest, the strongest, and whatever, symbolically, New York is not better than other places. For instance, a tsunami happened also in Chile, but New York is symbolic. So if you see an image like this, and you see after a typhoon in New York, it's particularly impressive. And as a matter of fact, this is the image of New York. And I think that we are in designers, so we know the power of images. So you see that something so big, so important, so strong as New York can be hit by a boom, quite normal. And you have all the light that you are imagining here. It's probably this one around to produce it, but all the others are not. So it shows the fragility, and as a matter of fact, in my view, if we move to a larger vision about sustainability, what is disappearing as the main word for sustainability, beyond the fact that we talk consuming less, blah, 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 resilience. So it's the capability of the system to resist without collapsing to the problem that will arrive. In my view, this is another lecture, but this become the main word to define what we have to do to move towards sustainability. That includes, of course, reducing consumption, change the way of production, but the key issue is that in a world that becomes more and more risky, we are seeing that our stupid globalization is generating very fragile systems. So we have to move towards systems that are resilient, and the systems that are resilient are the networked system. And we come back to our social innovation, the networked system has a lot of technology inside, but to implement a networked system, you need a social acceptance. So you can impose a nuclear power plant. You take the army and you impose it. That's probably been done here. You cannot impose a network of generators spread in all the houses, because the people have to accept it, have to take it, have to understand it. So if we move from the vertical hierarchical system to the diffuse system, distributed system, necessarily you need some new technology, of course, but you cannot imagine to implement a distributed system without a social change and the social comprehension of what is happening and the willing of the people to do it. So, here we are. So what is happening? The catastrophe, blah, 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 all the negative issue, of course. But as you know, the crises are crises, but the crisis concept includes also the new that appear from the crisis. And I like a lot this quote of Arundhati Roy that has been said here nearby. By the way, Brazil has an incredible story for what regards the alternative thinking. So I hope that this new consumeristic development will not delete everything. In any case, we had Porto Alegre, we had the social forum, we had the conference, so a lot of very important things for sustainability happening here. So she said this phrase, and I think that is right. I think that what is happening is not only some little things, but it's a kind of, you know, the tectonic change. So it's a new continent that is emerging. We see the islands, but the islands are multiplying, and in some way, even if the sea is still the old paradigm, but something is happening. This is not a kind of utopia, it's an observation, and it's a kind of design approach. So it will happen, so this new continent will really emerge if a lot of things will happen in between some design capability to help this process. In any case, I think that she's right, and that a new world is emerging. So the many diverse events that we can observe, we have to have the capability to see in the diversity what they have in common, and to recognize that maybe there is a new civilization that is emerging. And if we move today from the 2003 to 2012, I think that the motivation to say that that kind of idea of a new world emerging, she said poetically, I heard and read, now we can really see much more in a much more concrete way. So this new world that's emerged, the island of this archipelago, are hundreds of thousands of ideas that are mainly bottom-up. And this idea I will not pass through. I think that you can read in a random way and everybody will recognize something that is known, because luckily we are not anymore talking about something that is true. Reading the newspaper everywhere in the world, somebody has passed through some of these ideas. And as I said at the beginning, it's quite obvious, because these ideas are the normal capability of people to find solutions facing some problems with all the observations that they did before. And the common denominator feed over the user-centered design if you want. So I designed it to start from the user, but the user is not anymore a user. It's not anymore a user, because we are talking about people that collaborate in the solution, so they are more producer than user, and it's not anymore a, because the traditional user-centered design was a way to observe the person and try to squeeze from this person the need to see if there is something else that they can say at the end of the story. Now we have to look to the people to see that the people have capabilities, have resources, to be part of the problem and the solution, and to be part of the solution we have to consider not only one person but a network, because we are social animals and we work with others. So when we talk about social innovation, we talk about a design that is in line with the idea of the user-centered design, when the user is not an individual, but is a collective or a network. And the key issue in our design is the starting point is not to say what are the needs of the people. Now I exaggerate a little bit, but we are not looking for the needs of the people. We should look for the capability of the people. So what they are capable to do, and how we design can help them in doing what they would like to do. So it's not up to us to decide what to do. They will decide what to do, but we can create some conditions, some platform that can permit to those people to use their own capability, resources, that is synthesized with the church asset to effectively have it. And so we can see the collaborative neighborhoods, collaborative parties, collaborative gardens, organized community gardens, people that help each other, and people that help each other in building a house or restoring the house, and so on and so on. Okay. Now this was the previous step. Now I arrived to what I really wanted to tell. And we can, and you also are doing, we can work on ideas like this one, or maybe time by time invent some new ones. And it's not necessarily every time to invent a new idea. The chair has been invented once, and afterward we have designed 1,000 or 1 million of chairs. So the idea of community support agriculture is an idea, and afterward we can have 1,000 different ways of having this kind of idea. So it's not that we necessarily every time have to invent from zero again the stories. In general, maybe not so much in your presentation today, but if you go, as I asked you to go with the Young Foundation, Nesta, or SIX, or the other, or the New Economic Foundation, and look about social innovation, they mainly talk about organizational models. And also, we designers, the design community that I know until now has largely talked about how to make it work. So an issue about organization, but for sure it's important, because if the idea do not work, nothing happens. They have to work. Many of those that I mentioned talk about the economics. And as a matter of fact, it's very interesting because all these cases have very special economy. So who deal with the story, they are in the social economy that is a kind of ecology of economies. So it's an economical model that is the result of many different models. So it's not that they are against the market or against the state. They are could integrate the market, the state, but also the mutual exchange, the gift, the outdoor production. So each one of these ideas, if you look attentively, they are very sophisticated economical models that have to be studied because somebody said, and I think, that it is the beginning of a new economy. So the beginning of what will be beyond the stupid liberalism here now is here, probably. Because it's beyond the liberalism, beyond the communism, is another way of conceiving economy as a complexity of different economies, plural, that live together in a kind of ecological system, including the gift, including the auto-organization, including what we do because we like to do it, and so on. There also the beginning of political discussion. So I said before that all these initiatives are kind of political, even if no one party represents them. But in the moment in which they change the way in which you organize your life, they enter in a domain that is the domain of which normally the politics. So they are dealing about a kind of daily life politics that is very important. And there are people that are discussing also in my group or in my network. We are working on a new idea of public, on how the public policy can be changed to keep in account the normal. All the society are based on a kind of relationship between the citizen and the state. And now in Europe we had generated this beautiful idea of the welfare state. Now the welfare state, there was a kind of big brother that looked to the people from cradle to grave. Now the welfare state is in crisis and facing the complexity of the society, something else is emerging, and maybe there is another idea of the state they call the partner state. So the state that is not a kind of big brother taking care of you, but is a kind of partner that helps you to do what you want to do and to be what you want to be. So this is a big discussion. But something is missing. Because we can talk about organization, but there are also the managers that talk about organization. We can talk about economy, but there are also the people that do the economy that can do it. We can talk about politics, but there are also already the one that deal with political science that are talking about that. So we don't have some specificity, our specificity, and what in this discussion is missing. But maybe you know because you remember the title for my speech. What is missing is the idea of quality. So we discuss about social innovation, even the designer, without talking about the quality. And the quality means not only that something works, but that something we like, that something is even beautiful. So if we take seriously that this social innovation is the expression of a new civilization, we have to keep in account that civilization are not done only of organization, economy, and political issues. Civilization are done by general value ideas that people like. And as we will see, the quality is powerful. And so if we really talk about the huge big change at the end of the story, many people do things or because there is a catastrophe and they are obliged to do it, or because they like it. And if they like it, it means that there is some new quality that they discover, given that the quality is a social construction. Quality is not a given, it's not a law of the nature. Quality is something that we create, the idea of quality. So the question is, if this social innovation, as we say, is the emerging of a new families or new way of organizing the society, is emerging, or new economy is emerging, maybe of new politics, in parallel we can say it's also something that they tell to us, the new qualities are emerging. So we try to, this is the last kind of discussion that we have started in the last maybe 6 months. And we try to apply the same inductive way of looking to things. So one of the issues about working as a designer for social innovation is not to project from the beginning all your view, your dream, and your utopia, but of course you have your opinion, but you filter with your opinion something that exists into the reality. So we have to imagine if looking to the case of social innovation, we can discover something that could be the beginning of this new set of qualities. And the starting point of this discussion is what I already said 1 minute ago. the majority of the people that move from one way of doing things to another way of doing things, at the end of the day, they do it because they like it. So they find the solution. The second solution is better than the first one. Therefore, we have to assume that if we look to the solutions and we try to understand them, and we try to read them by the qualitative point of view, we could maybe discover some element of this new qualitative paradigm that maybe is too much. So the way to discover the new quality is to look again in the reality of the social innovation fields that are emerging from the reality of the society. Even if they are noisy, even they are more common, but they are telling very meaningful stories. So, the thing comes back. Whoever is implicated is part of one of those new initiatives, and you ask what they do it. In general, the answer is always double. I want to have fresh food. I want somebody take care of my kids. I want somebody to take care of me because I'm elderly. I wanted to go to work without the jam in the traffic. So everyone answers to some very concrete issue. No one of those lists that I put there is only I want to enter an ashram and become Buddhist. That is very good, but it's a totally different story. They want to obtain something, but the way in which they want to obtain it has a kind of side effect. Remember the beginning, social innovation, or idea that work in a process that has also social value. So we are talking about not the first result, but the kind of side effect. All of them say, I have better relation with people. So the issue of improving the quality of the relationships is the major driver of all the people that do this by choice. So relationship is the first very important issue, and if we are to talk about quality, we have to talk about the quality of relationships. This is not totally new for the design community, so the issue about the design is about the quality of relationship is something that had already been part of our story, and in some way also the shift from the traditional product-based production and consumption to all the experiences for the service society was related to relationship. But here, the relations are more dense. So what people search is relationship with a certain density. It's not the normal experience when there has been the story about the experience design. It was about relationship, but normally it was a relationship that you can have if you go to Disneyland. So there is a kind of a word and you have relationship with that. Here is the intention to have a deep relationship. If somebody of you know Martin Buber, by the way, he was Brazilian, he said that there are two kinds of interaction. The interaction with the person considered as a thing is IT, and there is the interaction with the human being, real human being, the I-tau, in which you are exposing yourself to some risk. So there is a whole discussion about the quality of relationship. And who can develop this kind of discussion in the artifact technology design? So if we have to go in interdisciplinary, etc., but where, if we talk about organization, economy, politics, there are others. We can say our point of view, but there are others that are to develop in depth. This kind of discussion about the quality of relationship, who else in the interdisciplinary podcast should have the capability to establish this kind of discussion. And now, I cannot, probably each one of the qualities that I will mention could be an entire lecture or maybe an entire course. But you can imagine that the way in which you design the platform that helps to create interactions, you can have very diverse interactions. If I take, given that I give the example, the community-supported agriculture, you have some group that are really together in a kind of, they look like a little bit the alternative movement of the 70s, and there are some others that are practically practically a digital platform that permit the kind of daily life and relationship. And the way in which you define your project is here, it depends on the project. So you can, for instance, co-housing, you can have some co-housing that are a kind of a hippie community, people like it, and you can have a co-housing that is very similar to a residential block in Switzerland, where in the basement they have many common services, they are very polite, they say hello every morning, but they don't have particular relationship. So the way in which you decide how to orient can create different kinds of relationships. So the way in which the relationship will appear, it depends a lot on the system that is generated. In any case, this is only to give you the idea that the discussion could be very long, but let's move to another one. The second very important issue is work. And this is really a destructive quality because, well, again, we are designers, so I think we have read some book or marketing or we designers, we work for the well-being of people. Yeah. And what we imagine, what the people express their own well-being. We imagine somebody that is the best of well-being is to be in on the sand of the beach drinking something cold and having a beautiful time, or sitting in your armchair looking at the TV, or being sitting in the theater and looking at the theater. So all the images that we have when we talk about somebody really expressing their well-being is when they are not working. So when they are not doing anything productive. And the implicit fact was you went to work, your bloody work, pay your taxes, gain your money, and afterward your real life is when you finish the work. And you will be happy to have some entertainment. Now, all those people that enter in the systems, the kind of activity that we mentioned before, they work a lot. So they are very active. And they like it. So it means something that everybody knows, that we like not only to be served, but we also like to be active, to prove to ourselves that we are capable. We like do things well, or at least this is part of the human character, even if the consumeristic society has pushed it on the bottom of the board. So it's a little bit as something that is very human to express ourselves for the capability to work. It's re-emerging. And there is a redefinition of the word so deep that even if we discuss about work, the good work or the one that was intellectual, the manual work was not considered as something good. And the work was only the one to make money and not the ones, for instance, to take care of the kids in the house, or to organize a committee to have a participation in your neighborhood. So work is whatever imply your energy, your intelligence, your capability of doing things and making them well. And you can design the system in order to give more possibility to express this kind of work. And in my view, many of you I know are dealing with craftsmanship. It's very interesting the link that we have all this story with the traditional craftsmanship. But the real one, when the craftsman was a real craftsman, and I advise everybody to read, if you have not already done it, Richard Sennett, the book Craftsman, where he explained very well, better than what I'm doing now, the issue that we can imagine a work that is done for the sake of the quality of the work. That is the definition of craftsman that Richard Sennett is giving. So it's craftsman whoever work for, first of all, for the sake of a work well done. Afterward, well, they have to live, they have to pay. But the first motivation is I like to do this very well. Okay. The new quality is a quality of life that is full when you have the possibility to express yourself doing something well done. There is an issue of scale. All the cases are small in scale. And we can say maybe they are small and maybe tomorrow they will become big, as it happened. In the last century, many co-op started small, and now in Italy, but I'm sure also here, you have some co-op that started at the scale, at the human scale, and now they are very similar, we say, to what other corporations. Why? Because they are so nasty? No, simply because it's proven that we can have real human relationship only until a certain number of people. It's not more complex than that. So in some way the issue, the quality of scale, go back to the quality of the relationship. Everybody knows I can manage 10, 20, 30 real relationships, but if you arrive to 200, it's not anymore a human relationship, it's a bureaucracy, it's an administration. So the small group are the ones that permit to guarantee human relationships. And there are some scientists that study it, and they say, now I leave to you to verify, to be sure, that the number, there is something really embedded in our brain. We have the possibility to connect real deep relationship until 150 people. It's not me, it's, I don't remember the name, but some neuroscientist. So until a certain, in any case, until a certain number, we can have this kind of deep relationship. Beyond that, we need to move toward other form of organization that are not based on the direct control between people that look at each other in the eyes, but you need other form of organization. So the issue about scale is important, and you have to go back to what I said at the beginning. In the future, you have to think to the new system and technological, because in the past, you could say, hey, Manzini, yes, of course, it would be beautiful to have all this small organization, but unfortunately, if you want to scale up, you have to grow. So there is nothing that can be done. So it's inevitable. And you are very naive if you think, well, in the network society, not more anymore like this. Yes. It's the last century that is going. They have understood that it's finished, so they are moving away. Everybody today knows, and everybody at least knows it for the distributed computing, that the notion of what is big and what is small is not anymore the same as in the past. At the beginning of the computer age, still the big was the best. You have the big, huge computer. So in the same way that you have the big power plant, the big manufacturing, and the big computer in the 70s, 60s, 70s. Now, every one of you has in the pocket what it is. And the power of all together is the power of the network. So, who knows what will be the implication, but for sure, the notion of big and small is not anymore the same. And we have to rethink. And the new technology permit an economy and the technology and the infrastructure that are based on the distributed. So it's possible. It's not even, but it's possible to imagine upscaling without growing in the traditional sense. And so it's possible to go to have an idea that is not true that the biggest is the best, but the most connected is the best, and to try to have the more that is possible this kind of scale. There is an issue about place, and this is probably very well known now, even if I want to underline two things. One is that for some decades, discovering globalization, there was people that were saying that there will not be anything as a place, because we will live in the no places, as was written by Marc Roget, or we are living only in the system of flow, as was also Mein Kassel at the time was writing something like this. So the place appeared as disappearing. Now we all discover that the more that we go towards the globalization, the more that people search for places. And this is quite obvious because we are a physical entity, we have a body, we are embedded somewhere. So we are rediscovering something that is so obvious. At the same time, the case of places, we can also see the risk, because there is the risk in many situations, even in my country, that the rediscovery that took place means to create a kind of barrier in between me and the ones that are similar to me and all the other ones. So the quality of the place today is not only to be deeply embedded in your village, but to develop an idea of new cosmopolitanism, a kind of cosmopolitan localism. So to be local but cosmopolitan in the way to be an open society at the same time. So there is a lot of research, and not enough to say, okay, the place we know what it is, because in the future the place will be connected, and the place is connected at the risk to create the artificial boundaries that many religions and many groups are now creating against the others. So it's really one of the more challenging issues for all our culture and for designers in particular to imagine and to propose the quality of places that at the same time have an identity as a place but are open to the others. And this is at every scale, included the small scale that I will see today, and it's also for our case. Sometimes the work on the locality could have a little bit the smell of going back to the past, where the work on the locality today to be resilient, to be open, should be a kind of platform to project ourselves towards the future. And there is the time of the past century from the futurist movement on was an accelerated time, a linear time, a very aggressive time. And we are discovering that we need also to slow down, not always, not in every moment, but we need this island of slowness. And if you want, why do we need slowness? Because we go back again to the issue about relationships. This is why I put it on the first. Because the deep quality of relationship in between a figure, between a person and object, cannot be built instantly. You need the deep quality is a kind of construction of many layers of relationship, very complex. So it asks for time. So if you probably, if I say slowness built into the slow food, that is a kind of movement that has proposed this idea of slowness in relation to food, and they explain very well. So you can have an instant production of Coca-Cola and an instant appreciation of what the Coca-Cola can give to you. But if you are talking about a very good wine, both the production of the very good wine and also the understanding of the very good wine ask for time, ask to work, ask to make you take the time to write to understand all the richness of what has been proposed. This is the deep quality. And when we want to have really relationship with people, it asks time. And so if we want to have a relationship, we have to slow down. Of course, there are some points because we cannot slow down continuously, etc., etc. So again, now I want to try to finish, but you can imagine that this capability to rethink about time is one of the major issues. And if you take all this story together, in the quality of the complexity, modernity, the Western modernity has been a kind of simplification. So we have to be consumer or producer. We have to be in the countryside or in the city. We have to be mental worker or manual worker. So there was several boxes trying to describe ourselves into a box doing something that was a simplification of that specific characteristic. All these examples are much more complex. Every activity, you are producer and consumer. You are countryside and you are in the city. You are doing some intellectual work and you are doing manual work. So everything blurred and you have a very complex model. And why we like it? Again, at the end of the day, we really discovered something that was very obvious because we, as human beings, are very complex. So simply we recognize that the traditional modern activity, modern way of creating models of the reality this is the beginning of a discussion about quality that I think that I'm over now. Who could tell me how much part I am? 2 minutes, 5 minutes? So, at the end of the story, you would say, this quality are going back to the past, to something that maybe was deep in the way we think of us. In some way, yes, in some way, not. Because there is probably something that is typical of the human being. And in some way, we rediscover some element that could be typical of the human being that, by a certain point of view, we could find more in the pre-modern society than in the modern society. And so, as it always happens, we try to build our future using some material that come from the past. It has always been like this. The difference is that because the most recent past has pushed us toward a kind of disaster, to find some usable material, we have to go back to the pre-modern period. So this is why a lot of things seems to be pre-modern, because we use them in the same way that in the medieval society they used some part of the temple of the Romans to build a new church. But it's not the new church was similar to the ancient temple of the Roman ones. It was only that they found out something that could be useful to build the new architecture. So we are in some way using some elements from the past to rebuild something that will have, in my view, a totally different meaning. And I write here destructive quality because in my view the qualities are really clashing against the mainstream ones. And the difference is, this could be a kind of conclusion, that the traditional modern quality has been under the idea somebody produced something that incorporates the quality and you have to consume it, toward a more reasonable idea that the quality is a social construction. So we all cooperate in the production of quality, and in this cooperation we bring all our complexity. So in some way there is a kind of war in this moment. And I think that the place as Brazil is particularly relevant by this point, because in your case you still have a lively part that comes from the pre-modern society. This is that. It's a kind of resource. When we talk about the resource of Brazil and the biodiversity of Brazil, we have been accustomed to say there is this biodiversity and Brazil is a kind of reservoir of this biodiversity, but it's still also a kind of repository of diversity that comes from a population that are still in a condition that is not the modern one. And afterward, there is the Western and Westernized idea that are arriving with this present socio-economical success, that are changing the life of people in a certain way. That is the linear way of the previous century. Yeah, the issue is really to be able to answer all the social actors, and in my view, the designer in particular could play a role. Could play a role to try to generate the quality or to show the quality, to make them more visible, that could reorient the wave of transformation that is involved. So in some way, there is a wave of transformation that I'm not judging better. I imagine that for somebody that lived in the favela and they now move at the sector C, it's good for them. And there's 20 million people a year, okay? Like this. But what does it mean to be in this group? How we can have a role in influencing what are the priorities, how people judge the quality. And we have to be convinced, we for the first, that the quality is not a given, it's a construction. So if it is construction, it's a human construction. And so it's, of course, if you interview the people and you ask them what they want, in average, you find that the people want what has been seen in the TV as the best that the modernity can give. It's obvious. So given that, I will not say you are not to make interview on the people and listen to what they want, but you know what they want if you make it like this. But you have to search for the view, for the heroes, for the ones that are starting to do something different. We have to make kind of marketing research, but the marketing research will not tell us anything about it. Not only here, also in Europe, also in everywhere. So you have to find the people. You have to find those that have some light. And even if it's only one, even if it's only one family, but this family can represent the beginning of the transformation. So, well, okay, maybe we can discuss, and I think that is better that okay, this was an example, but it's too late. So I think that I tried to present you where the designer should be. So just to conclude, a very little observation. Not preclude, but permit me, I'm very nasty. I don't speak so well Portuguese. No, I don't speak Portuguese at all. I can understand. And I was here looking to the presentation. The only presentation that I understood is this presentation. Because it's so clear, it's a genius. No, not only. But because there was some images. There was talking images. All the other presentations, sorry, but if you want to attract some young designer, some creative designer, though they enter now, maybe because I am exotic, you cannot give the idea that design for social innovation is what you have seen in the presentation here. Even if the motivation was very good. Even maybe the presenters are doing something good, but we have to find our specificity. It has to be the most challenging, interesting, creative way of working. The risk, and I feel the responsibility because I've been one of the promoters of design social innovation, is to generate a huge number of people showing flowcharts. We are not the ones with flowcharts. Somebody else. We have to know a little bit of the flowchart in the same way that the designer chair has to know something about wood, material, and so on, but we are not the engineer of the material. We are the designer. And the same is here. We have to know the organization, the ethnographic research, and all this kind of story, but at the end, our specificity is the quality, is the deep quality, is to be critical, is to give deepness, to make things thick in the meaning, to work on the meaning and to make the meaning, and maybe also to have some communication capability to make them clear. So, sorry, I wanted to, because also myself and also my colleague, we have presented a lot of this kind of things like this. But we have to find another way to communicate and another way of doing and be convinced that our role is not to mimic. It happens often that we as a designer, we arrive quickly at some issue. So we start to do it, and doing it, we do something that afterward we discover that somebody else could do better than us. Okay, we have broken the ice, we started the discussion, but no, please try to understand where are we. So how we can express ourselves. And in my view, the point is, take the best designer that you know, young designer that you know, make a presentation. If you like it, you are doing something good. If you don't like it, there is something that doesn't work. You are not in the right track. For this, I think that finally we are discussing about quality, and finally we bring these ideas that are our specific ones. And just to conclude, I have some experience of that, you know. When I started to talk before, when I was talking not with the designer, but with somebody or some social entrepreneur or social manager, I was talking too about organization, about economy. Now I started, when they invite me, I only talk about quality. And they like it a lot. And And they like it because now things are sufficiently mature. People understand that there is something that goes beyond the flowchart and beyond the team and beyond organizations. This is the opportunity that we have. If we really think the design for social innovation is a design topic, we have to reinforce what is the specificity of design. Every project is multidisciplinary, and we have to assume that also the other are clever. It's not that we have to explain a management to some student managers. There are a lot of student managers, but in the future there will be some clever managers that understand very well the management of this new organization, and the same for the economy. So at a certain point somebody will tell the story that now we are telling. We have to find ourselves that is specifically diverse, and we have to be recognized for this diversity because we are bringing something important. At the beginning of the last century, for the good of the bad, the Bauhaus and the Corbusier, they were not talking about organization. They were talking about quality. And they have been extremely successful, probably even too much. Maybe not too disastrous. But, so, this is, if we are the beginning of a new age, the design as a culture has to play a role. And who else will do it? So we have to know where we are starting from, but to begin to make one step after the other. Okay.